guys ready? All right, good evening, everyone. Welcome to the Planning Commission meeting for November 21st, 2024. Roll call is, we have one commissioner who is excused, Eric Ryer. Otherwise, all current commissioners are present. Is there any questions or concerns on the meeting minutes from our last meeting? Otherwise, I'd be looking for a motion to approve.
So moved. Second.
Moved and seconded. Any questions or concerns on the motion? All right, seeing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. At this point, we are going to go into public comments and appearances. If anyone has any public comments or appearances at this time, you have up to 3 minutes to speak. Otherwise, if you want more time than that in the future, contact me before the meeting. Any public comments or appearances? Yes, sir. Step up to the microphone there. Name and address, please.
Hi, my name is Tom Cotter. I live at 201 East Main Street, Harbor Lights condominiums. And I did receive a notice in the mail about the special exception for Schooner's Pub sign. I think everyone in our building received the notice because we're adjacent to Schooner's. Anyway, I just had a question on the sign. Apparently, the sign, I'm not sure if it's going to be fully lit or backlit. The signage that was put on Fork and Tap was a backlit sign. And I was under the impression that signage had to be backlit, but I could be wrong on that, so I just wanted a clarification on that. And also, I'm just wondering why the variance that was requested was for 24 square feet as opposed to the 18 square feet, when the difference is only about 1.5 feet. Even if you kept the same height, the length would be about 1.5 feet difference. So those are the only two questions I had.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Harris will address those when we're in there. Otherwise, the owners of Schooner Pub are sitting right behind you, and you can probably ask them too. It's even quicker. All right, any other public comments or appearances? All right, seeing none, then we're going to move right into the agenda of item number 4. Special exemption, consideration possible action on a request for a special exemption from section 485-95 of the City of Port Washington zoning code to allow an alleyway, driveway, and parking pad addition to exceed the required width and parking setback standard 705 and 707 North Milwaukee Street. Dennis Rickard and Wiza LLC are the applicants. The recommendation from staff on this is to approve the special exemption with 3 conditions, which I will let Mr. Harris explain. Bob.
All right, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Let me just orientate everyone to the site. This is at the corner of Pierre Lane and North Milwaukee Street. So here is the aerial showing the approximate location of the requested parking expansion. Here is just using the survey supplied by the applicant with just a little cleaned up version that what you have in your packet, but essentially a 20 by 20 slab and then the drive approach to the alley. And then just a site photo of the area in question, and then just looking at the context of some of the driveways and approaches in that alley, both north and south. And so, as the commission is aware, the zoning code empowers the commission to grant a special exception to various sections of the parking code. In this case, it would be allowing for a wider drive approach than what is otherwise permitted, and also an expansion of the parking beyond the setback. In this case, as a corner lot, there is a front setback equivalent, which is 20 feet, and this would be exceeding, going into that setback. The applicant states that the garage overhead is too low for larger vehicles and wishes to install the extra parking to avoid stacking of cars to the tenants. It's a duplex, so there's a 4-car requirement for that. And the criteria that the commission can use to grant the special exception is in your packet. But real quick, as a reminder, I'll just read it. Special exception will not or will have an adverse effect on surrounding properties by reason of noise, dust, odor, appearance, or other objectionable factors, nor or will create a nuisance, substantial negative effect on surrounding values, or interfere with reasonable enjoyment of the properties. The mayor mentioned my recommendation to approve, and then I have 3 conditions of the approval that the commission can consider. It is 1, the parking slab and approach shall be paved to match the existing pavement. Number 2, the parking slab and approach shall not be less than 3 feet from the pier property line. And lastly, landscape screening shall be installed on the south side or the pier lane side of the parking slab. I believe one of the applicants is here if you have any questions.
Any questions from commissioners? Roger?
I guess the landscaping do we know what type of landscaping's planned to be in? And my concern is if you're planning on being 3 feet off the property line, you get outside that 3 feet, you're on city property. And that would require its own permits, including maybe the answer is no, you can't do it.
I can,
I'm just
Did
curious.
you want to step up to the podium? Thank you, sir.
I can answer that. Going off of the survey, it'll probably be about 4 feet off that property line. I just wanted to make sure that the commission is aware of the minimum of 3-foot offset. And then landscaping will just be, there's no landscaping designated yet. That'll just be with staff.
Yep.
Anything you want to add? Okay.
No, I don't think it would be.
Okay. Any other questions? Mr. Ehrlich?
So we're thinking this is 4 cars? Because you got two in the driveway or 2 in the garage and then 2 on the new slab?
With the current tenants, there's 3 pickups
Yeah,
and then a larger SUV. So getting into the garage is
not happening.
Yeah, it's not feasible. So it would be 2 cars on the current driveway that's there now,
Yep.
and then
2 on the
2 on
slab.
the new slab if it was approved.
Okay.
More reason to bring back the original Chevy Caprice. Low and wide, not tall and wide.
I mean, I'd be okay with that.
Any other questions on that, or?
No.
Mr. Newmeyer?
I appreciate it. I'm the alternate for that district, and I appreciate the neighbors that talked to me, and this is really going to go far for that. So thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Is that a motion to approve then?
I will make the motion to approve on staff recommendations for item 1, 2, and 3.
All right, is there a second on that motion?
I'll second.
A second? Any questions or concerns on the motion? Good? All right, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, motion passes. Next one is number 5, special exemption, consideration and possible action on a request for a special exemption for a proposed wall sign to exceed square footage requirements at 112 through 114 North Franklin Street. The applicant is Schooner Pub. The staff recommends approval of the minor review as presented. Mr. Harris.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And quick note, I have minor review on that wording. It's a special exception. I think that's a holdover from a earlier report. So here is the image of the proposed sign. It is a internally lit sign and not the backlit sign. There is no requirement either way for, what's required or is not required. It's a channel letter sign that's backlit, and channel letter signs are permitted, and it makes no reference whether it's a backlit or halo sign or what is proposed here. Real quick, I do send out notices for special exceptions to adjacent properties. It's not a requirement, but just as a courtesy, as it is a deviation from a zoning code. I did want to point out that the notice had the square footage for, that's the total sign allowed. And when I sat down to write the reports, I realized that it's, the square footage was not correct in the notice, it's correct in the report and on the agenda. So what it is was, I sent the notice out with the total square footage allowed, and I didn't put in the wall sign square footage. So with that, what's in your report is the correct one. So the Plan Commission is being asked to approve a 23 square foot sign on the east face, whereas 10 feet is required. So real quick, I think the images kind of explain it all. It's going back on the Schooner Pub Solarium and then facing the marina. And again, I do put in the criteria that the commission can grant a special exception that I just read in the previous item. Other than that, I recommend approval.
Do we answer both of your questions, sir? Just a yes or no, because we can't have a conversation, but
10 feet is what the requirement is, not
Per the sign code, yes. When there's a signage in the front and if there's any secondary sign, like in a parking lot or a side street, the sign code requires that sign be 50% smaller than what is allowed on the front or the Franklin Street in this case. So you have about a 20-foot wide, there's a 20-some foot wide width of linear frontage on Franklin. And so that would allow for 20 feet, then 50% for anything secondary is 10 feet. And that's why it's 23 versus 10.
Bob, I didn't see anything in here about like lumens or time it goes on or off. Is there any requirements for that?
Our sign code does not, but I know the applicant didn't make a mention of that in his narrative if he wants to come up and explain the lighting of the sign.
Is this on? All right. So lumens, I don't know. It would be commercially, it's being done by a very known light signage
Yeah.
company from Milwaukee. So lumens would be commercially normal as to other signs. Turns off, it wouldn't. So it would be a permanent signage, just like the other ones that face the marina right now. It would always be on. But ultimately, it's to bring security to the parking lot. Having a little bit extra light to the parking lot is never a bad thing. Having people from the marina see Schooner Pub and bring them onto Franklin. We did apply for one of the sign grants to try and do this as well. So all of these things are both beneficial to the community and to Schooner Pub and make sure that everyone knows. And so, yeah, that would be the sign.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Mr. Ehrlich?
Yeah,
Hey, Bill? You wanna-
why that size?
Because it looks
I mean,
great. Yeah, it looks appropriate.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay.
So in honesty, we have a small square footage. It is very difficult to see our little tiny footprint from the marina. This looks normal for our building. It's not a massive size. I think it looks great.
Yeah, it's not overly obnoxious. But what would it take to, because like your S is kind of overhanging over the glass and things like that. What would it take to reduce it?
So the S is actually intentional. So if you look at our logo on the front of the building, it's the same lettering
Yeah.
with the enlarged S. Could it go smaller? Sure, but then you're kind of changing our brand.
Okay. Yeah, no, I get that the S is a little bit bigger. I'm thinking, what if you shrunk the whole sign down a little bit so that it fit with all that dark kind of band rather than having the S overhang?
So we have gone through multiple iterations of it. We have, in kind of anticipation for these types of questions, in candidacy, it looks silly.
Okay.
It's kind of like that bar and grill you see at the bottom.
Yeah.
That fit all the percentages that we needed to, and it looks silly. So when we kind of shrunk everything down, we just didn't think it was kind of worth the investment. So because this obviously isn't free. So for us to make the investment, it actually has to hit the
No, I get that. I
purpose
get
of
that.
it. So this was what we ultimately settled on as being worth the investment and kind of showcasing our brand.
Okay.
Roger?
Yeah, question probably more for Bob, but is there anything in the ordinance that if, like, one of the letters fails the lit, is there anything, I mean, obviously, if he's got a thriving business, it's in his interest to get it fixed, but if we run into that situation where we start getting signs like these that are partially lit,
No, there's nothing in the code. I think there's some general language about maintaining the sign, but there's nothing that specific in the sign code.
Just, sorry, the teacher in me is looking at that going, Uner Ub, like what could be the worst thing that would be spelled up there? But- Any other questions for them? I don't have any. Is there anyone willing to make a motion to accept the variance?
I'll make that motion.
There's a motion by Alderman Newmeyer. Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Seconded. Any questions or concerns on the motion? All right, seeing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, motion passes. Brings us into number 6, final plat consideration and possible action on a final plat for the Hidden Hills North subdivision located north of Astor Street, south of Green Bay Road, and east of Indigo Drive. Belinsky Homes is the applicant. The staff recommends approval of the final plat, subject to final review by the city engineer. Mr. Harris.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So this is the Hidden Hills North subdivision. It's in the aerial slide, you see it outlined in red. And so this is the, just the next phase, the next iteration of the current Hidden Hills subdivision. You see it's just immediately south of Green Bay Road, and then obviously north of Grand Avenue, northwest of the Hidden Hills subdivision. Here is the preliminary plat that was approved back in 2021, and outlined in red is the single-family subdivision portion of the plat. And then here we are with the proposed final plat, with the single-family. You'll note that the condominium plat is a separate plat needing Plan Commission recommendation and council approval, and that's the next agenda item. But in this case, this is just the Hidden Hills North subdivision. And with that, staff finds that the final plat is substantially unchanged from the approved preliminary plat, and it is consistent with the comprehensive future land use plan. And so with that, the staff recommendation, as stated, is approval subject, or recommendation to approve subject to final review and approval by the city engineer.
Roger, question?
No questions.
Oh, I'm sorry. Your mic was on.
Oh, I'm
So
sorry.
I've become specially tuned to the red button. Any questions on this? All right, anyone willing to make a motion?
I'll move approval.
Motion by Commissioner Ehrlich. Is there a second?
Just clarification that with Bob's recommendation.
Yes, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I'll second that.
So the motion to is approve this with the recommendation from the city planner. That moved and approved. Any questions or concerns on the motion? Seeing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Number 7, condominium plat. Consideration and possible action on a condominium plat for the Hidden Hills North subdivision located north of Astor Street, south of Green Bay Road, and east of Indigo Drive. Belinsky Incorporated is the applicant. The suggested, or the staff recommendation is to approve, is approval of the condominium plat as presented. Bob?
Thank you. So related to the previous matter, this is the condominium plat portion of the Hidden Hills North subdivision. And here is again the approved preliminary plat from 2021. And then the red is outlining the condominium portion of that plat. It is a total of 7 2-unit condominium units. And this is the Hidden Hills condominium plat. that will require a recommendation from the Plan Commission and final approval from the Common Council. As noted, staff recommends, well, real quick, condominium plat, it's substantially unchanged from the approved preliminary plat and is consistent with the future comprehensive plan, land use plan. With that, staff recommends approval. I would add the proviso of final review by the city engineer.
Any questions for Bob? Anyone willing to make a motion to accept the recommendation from staff?
I will make that motion.
Moved by Alderman ooh, you almost, Newmeyer. And looking for a second?
Oh, go ahead.
I'll second it.
Seconded by Roger. Any questions or concerns on the motion? All right, seeing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. All right, the next is a plat approval, consideration and possible action to approve a Wisconsin Department of Transportation real estate plat and relocation order for the State Highway 33 overlay project located on Portview Drive south of Highway 33 and adjacent to 1329 West Grand Avenue and 1407 West Grand Avenue. Wisconsin Department of Transportation is the applicant. The staff recommendation is to approve the real estate plat and relocation order as presented. Bob?
Okay. This is kind of it's a plat, kind of a wonky plat. I've not seen a real estate plat before, but it's related to the upcoming 2026 State Highway 33 overlay project. And to do that, the WISDOT is going to require a temporary easement kind of on the Culver's property, and then a permanent easement in front of the Anze office building at 1329. So the plat itself is on the right, highlighted in yellow, and then I added the aerial just so you can see what exactly and what and where it is. If you have any questions, I would refer it to our esteemed city engineer, who forwarded this matter to me for Plan Commission recommendation and Common Council approval. And with that, I do recommend approval.
Esteemed engineer, anything to add? All right.
Why do they need that? That's such a small area that they're, for the overlay.
Well, that frontage road in front of Culver's is not a public road. So they're going to be on that road when they're doing construction, so they need temporary for that purpose. Then they're doing a little bit of work with that ramp, and that's also not on private property, on that sidewalk, so that's where they need a permanent easement.
They aren't going to make that a controlled intersection, are they?
I'm sorry.
Controlled, will they make that a controlled intersection?
With a light, no.
No. Thank you.
Any other questions? Anybody willing to make a motion?
I'll move approval.
All right, we've got a motion for approval of the relocation order and overlay project. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Seconded by the esteemed city engineer. That's going to stick, Roger. Any questions or concerns on the motion? All right, seeing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, motion carries. All right. That brings us to number 9, building site and operation plan, consideration and possible action on a proposed automotive repair business at 702 West Grand Avenue. Lindham's Real Estate owner and TM Family LLC is the applicant. The recommendation from staff is the approval of the building site and operational plan as presented with the following conditions, which I will let Mr. Harris explain.
All right, thank you, Mr. Mayor. So I think all of you are familiar with the site. It's at the northwest intersection of Grand and Maple Street. It's long been a automotive-oriented site. And just a real overview of the site more so. Here's the aerial of the site, and then this is the proposed site plan by the applicants, and I will note it is essentially the same as the site plan that was approved both in 2018 and 2021 when the owner of the site applied for a similar use as an automotive service business at the site. I think that's the only thing I have, yes. So with that, it is, it is a B3 general business zoning. The use is permitted by right, subject to approval of the building and site plan by the Plan Commission. And as noted, it's essentially the same site and building plan as was approved by this body in 2018. There are no exterior changes to the building currently, so it was waived from Design Review Board. And a couple other items I would note is that dumpsters will be in the rear and the north of the building, as noted on the site plan on the northeast corner of the property, and it is shown in your packet. And parking is the same proposed as in 2018. And then with that, I would just say the item for conditional approval is the landscape beds that were approved as part of the site plan again in 2018. So staff recommendation is approve, subject to landscape beds be repaired, including painting or staining, and planted with the species in accordance with the 2018 landscape plan that's in your packets. And then a standard condition we usually have for businesses such as this is no outside storage of automotive parts, heavy equipment, or junk cars. And the applicants are here if you have any questions.
I do. I'm going to start with you, Mr. Harris. With the design, the applicants can come up here if you guys like to. The first question is, with the Design Review Board, what was the thinking without any exterior improvements to the building or site?
Outside of, the condition with the, maintaining the landscape beds, it's unchanged. So outside of signage, which is done in-house, there was really nothing to review. It was the same as what was approved back in 18 and also in 2021.
Sure.
When the owner came back requesting a different site plan, but the commission stuck with the 2018 plan.
Okay. And was there any, I didn't see, and I may have missed it, but was there any conversation about signage or?
There will be, I'll go back to there will be signage. I think it's going to be on that above, next to those overhead doors facing Grand Avenue.
Right, so beyond the building?
It'll be on the building, yeah.
Okay. And then, sir, do you plan on selling any vehicles there?
No, we
Okay.
do not at all.
All right, that's all I needed to know. Any other questions or concerns?
No, actually, that was one of my questions, was the selling of vehicles. So I'm glad to hear that we're not selling vehicles on it. I'll move approval with the staff's
Recommendations?
recommendations.
So there's a motion to approve with the recommendations of the staff, the landscape beds and no outside storage. Is there a second for that? Second. Seconded by Alderman Newmeyer. Are any questions or concerns on the motion?
It sure would be nice to get those planting beds under control.
Yes, we surely will.
So, yeah. So
Excellent.
welcome.
Yeah, welcome and thank you.
Thank you.
All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. That brings us to number 10, consideration and possible action on a 32-unit condominium complex located east of Highway C and south of Kinsale Lane in the Prairie's Edge subdivision. The current recommendation from staff is, staff recommends approval of the building, site, and operation plan, subject to final civil plan approval by the esteemed city engineer. Mr. Harris.
Thank you. So real quick of an overview of the site and project. This is part of the Prairie's Edge subdivision. So looking at the site plan of a fully built-out Prairie's Edge, you see the north indicated. So the subject property is at the very southern end of the project. Originally, there was to be more of a townhome, multifamily development on this site. This goes back to the original 2017 approval. Since that time, the developer / applicant has pivoted to the higher density 2-building, 32-unit development. And then here is just the aerial location and the site location of what we are discussing here tonight. And with that, I just want to say that the change in densities still comports with the current zoning of RM2 multifamily. The zoning in this district allows the Plan Commission to allow for up to 16 units and 3-story multifamily buildings if it meets the criteria outlined in the zoning code, in which I have summarized in your packet. I do have greater aerials, but I think at this point, I'll just let the project architects give the commission a summary and a review of what's being proposed here. I might add, you do also have the handouts in front of you.
Okay, I am, wait, are we ready?
Clicked on the wrong PDF. Hold on.
Oh, yeah?
Of course, it's the one that takes a little longer.
Crashed.
Crash. Okay.
All right. Joe Galbraith with Galbraith Carnahan Architects. Do you guys require an address on the
No.
record? Okay.
No.
No.
I know some
Actually, yeah,
plantations-
just for fun, yeah, where do you live? No, go ahead. Doesn't matter. Yeah, we'll find you.
Yeah, so we're working on the south end of the site. Obviously, a lot of work has gone on this site already. Many of the buildings are in place. And so what we're presenting here is very much in keeping with the spirit and the design intent of the rest of the development. But it's just a slightly different type of product here, more of an elevator condo building so that people with more limited mobility can have a condo type of unit that would contrast some of the other condo units that have stairs or multiple levels. The main objective with the design of this building was so that all the units could have views of the lake. Being on this site, the primary attraction to this site is Lake Michigan. So the idea here was that the buildings would essentially step and get wider as they work towards the west, so that all of the units, even the ones that are furthest west, would have clear views, would have overlooks from their balconies toward Lake Michigan. The buildings are set up in a stagger format, so the building furthest to the south is more oriented west, whereas when we get to the building A, which is the northern building, it steps back. That allows for a drive entry that will go to the lower parking deck. And it also creates a better visual triangle for that intersection so that the building isn't crowding up onto County Highway C. The way the building is set up is there's a lower level parking deck that goes beneath both buildings, and then each building is constructed on top of that. So it's all non-combustible concrete frame, parking deck, and then wood frame buildings above that. Each of the buildings is 3 levels. There are 6 units per floor on floors 1 and 2, and then on the 3rd floor, it goes to 4 units. And so that those top level units, the penthouse unit, if you will, can be larger, more premium units, we'll say. And those units that are on the 3rd floor that face east have larger roof decks that then have very nice vistas of Lake Michigan. The aesthetic of the building, again, using the same materials that are common to the other buildings in the development. Starting at the ground level, we have a stone that will encase the parking deck. And the view that you're seeing here is really with the wetlands in the foreground. So this is looking from the east toward the west. And so on the right-hand side of this image, you can see how the grade builds up to meet that Kinsale Lane. So the building is more or less flush with the street at Kinsale Lane, and then it comes out of the ground as the topography works toward the wetland that is to the west or to the east of the buildings. On top of the parking deck, the buildings sit, but also there's going to be some green space, paver decks, sort of a plaza in between them that's elevated. And there will be landscaping that has yet to be completely flushed out that will encircle the building and exist on the plaza. The buildings themselves will have a white lap siding with accents of corrugated metal and some cedar plywood that will act as a soffit material, which is found used on some of the bluff homes that are existing. Yeah, this is a nice view that shows some of the detail of the materials. So you can see that base course of natural stone veneer that will come up to engage with the windows. Then there's a lap siding. The lap siding itself has a nice alternating repetition of, it's not just kind of a straight 6-inch lap. It goes, 6, 6, 4. So we develop a little bit of pattern in that. And then there's some trim banding that occurs at the third floor that breaks it up even more. This is here's a representation of some of the materials. So you can see the shingles on the left side, that wood soffit material, the corrugated metal, stone, and then just some of the windowsill, which would be a comparable stone or cast concrete type of product for the windowsills where the windows occur. The windows themselves would be a black fiberglass. They would be casement windows. Some of the other buildings in development have double hung, but just the casement was a more appropriate style for this building. And performance-wise, those windows develop a better seal because this is a very windy site. And on a day like today, when you have a lot of precipitation and higher winds, it's good to have that nice locking seal on the windows. What else? Let's see. Yeah, some of the comments that were made during the architectural review related to some of the windows. So one thing that we did look at as a team was adding some window muntins in our initial submittal. There weren't window muntins, but we've added those that are compatible with some of the other buildings in the development. There's some detailing that will take place at the windows that will set the windows back 2 inches to develop a little more depth in the facade. Sometimes modern buildings have more of a flatness for the windows, but we're taking special care to recess those windows a couple inches so it gives nice shadow lines and a little more depth to the facade. Anything else, Tony? Or
Any questions? Mr. Ehrlich?
Yeah, in the gable end
Yeah.
portion, you got the vertical, it looks like board and batten. Is that the T111?
Oh, no, at the upper gable?
Yeah, the
That's
upper
going to be the
gables.
corrugated metal.
That'll be the corrugated metal.
Yeah, that'll be corrugated metal will be there, and that'll also be on the bays that
Yeah.
protrude on the west side.
Okay.
Michael, the T111.
Hey,
No, like, we don't know what I'm not making fun of you. We don't know what you're talking
the
about.
cedar.
Okay, T111.
Yeah.
I had to look up window muttons or whatever. I didn't know that.
Yeah, there's muttons.
I went to
on
a lot
the-
of school.
those
I don't know
windows
what you're
right
talking
there,
about
the
half the time.
dividers.
So the other question I have is, I'm not sure if you can answer it or if it's more for Bob. With the more higher density buildings kind of moving to the south, does that change the site plan? Because we've got a large building in the middle of that site plan, the overall development site plan.
Let me pull it up again. It changes the site plan in that it went from the planned townhomes
Right.
to the larger. Yeah, it went from the townhomes to the larger, with the base plinth in the 2 units. So it does change the site plan. It does not change the
So that
size of,
large-
it doesn't change the size of the lot. The lot area remains the same.
No, right, but the, keep going back.
Oh, hold on. Should have went to the power.
There's like a 96 unit
There is, that's what I'm getting.
in the middle of that thing, that kind of big brown, kind of U-shaped thing, the luxury apartment. Is that still going to be there, so our density is actually getting more?
Yeah.
Okay,
That's still planned. So if you look at, if you take a look at Prairie's Edge, it's kind of bisected north-south by the Sheeling Lane, which is kind of like kind of bisects the the development from east and west. So you have on the west side of Sheeling is kind of the larger footprint buildings and the multifamily developments. And then on the east side of Sheeling, more towards the lake, are those single-family homes. And
Yeah.
so that's kind of the general layout of
Yeah.
the development.
okay.
If I could just add one thing, though, as far as the density goes, so the development agreement that we had contemplated up to 48 townhome condos.
Yeah.
So this puts us at 42 with Lot 38, and the ones down there, the apartments have always been part of that. We just had for Lot 39, that was always kind of a holding place for us. We weren't really sure exactly what we were going to lay out on that.
Yeah,
And we've looked at a couple of different designs for, what the condo layouts might be, different building configurations, and settled on this one, so.
yeah, no, and I actually really like the design. I think and it's a good spot for it on the overall site. I think I've always been a little nervous about the larger 96 luxury apartment building. And so I was hoping that this was going to kind of take some away from some of that, but I understand that what we're trying to do and where we're getting to.
The nice thing about it too is that as far as the condos go, they're a little bit smaller unit sizes than the townhome condos that we have on
Yeah.
38. And it allows us, again, to create a little more range in terms of price points too.
Well, and I think also just the way, like, for example, you've got the ones that are kind of east and west, those apartment buildings to allow some view quarters as you're going through. I think that will help a lot.
I just had a couple of quick questions as at the early stages of this for you all. My wondering is are these going to be exclusively owner occupied?
Yeah, these are for sale.
Correct, but like in the HOA, are they going to be able to do short-term rentals or?
No.
Okay,
Because
good.
our plan from the very beginning in this whole thing and desire was to be in very long-term hold position in the apartments and the commercial properties. So they would effectively be competing with us if we did that, so we don't allow that.
Okay. Otherwise, I really appreciate this and I love the project, so.
Thank you.
Any other questions or concerns? Yes.
Just to comment, I have reviewed stormwater calculations with this new development, and they conform with what previously has been done for a site.
Good, thank you for that. So the staff recommendation is to approve of the building site and operation plan subject to final civil plan approval by the city engineer.
I would also add, at Design Review Board, they recommended approval of the building. There was some discussion about adding the buntons to the windows and about cedars, and so the architects did submit those elevations that I showed just a couple minutes ago. So I would say that the recommendation and a motion, if you so desire, is to approve the building site and operations plan and allowing, with the elevations presented at tonight's meeting, just to make that clarification clearer.
All right, so the motion would be to approve the building site and operation plan subject to final plan approval by the city engineer as presented tonight.
Along with the, using the elevations presented tonight.
Yeah, with the elevations presented tonight. Is there someone willing to make that motion?
I so move.
Is there a second on that motion? Seconded? Were you able to capture all of that over there before I went too fast? All right. Any questions or concerns on the motion? All right, seeing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Approved or opposed? A motion passes.
I think this is going to be a nice addition to the.
I agree. I was going to just invite our friends who are here for other things. You don't have to stay. Yeah. So thank you. All right, the next agenda item is agenda item 11, Building Site and Operation Plan, consideration and possible action on a proposed public safety center facility located at 1540 West Grand Avenue, Ozaukee County. Owner is the city of Port Washington is the applicant. The recommendation from staff is to approve the building site and operational plan subject to final review and approval by the city engineer. Mr. Harris.
Okay, so what I'll do is just similar to the last item. I will just give a real summary overview, aerial view of the site, give my notes from the staff report, and then hand it over to the project architect. So aerial view looking northeast, the site is highlighted in the red at the northwest corner of Grand Avenue and County LL. And that's it for this one. But real quick on the staff report, so the zoning is currently B2 business, and that is a holdover from when the Casey's convenience store was approved in 2018, but the Casey's did not elect to go forward on that project. And so it will eventually have to be rezoned to public and utility lands to accommodate the civic building. I'm going to skip over and leave the building description to the architect. I will just say that the Design Review Board recommended approval of the building, and they had three considerations for the design team. One was use of a heavier cornice on the squad garage. Number two was focused landscaping to the public-facing corner lots. And number three, consider a broader glass curtain wall or glazing pattern on the east-facing portion of the building that houses the vintage fire truck and the second floor day room that we'll see later in the presentation. And the recommended motion that staff has is I move to approve the subject building and site and operations plan subject to the following conditions. Final civil and landscape plan review by the city engineer, city ownership of the subject site, and rezoning of the subject site from B2 business to PUL, and any additional conditions by the commission. And so with that, I'm going to hand it over to the project architect, and I will get the images up and ready.
Good evening, Commissioners. Chris Egger with Bray Architects. Some of you probably know this building better than I do by now, but for the rest of you, we'll try to give you a little overview of the site and building materials and move through that rather quickly. So the obvious building is a police and fire, police on one side, fire on the other with shared city amenities in the center. So, you know, we have obvious difficulty of a very large complex garage on one end and a very large complex garage on the other end, with a lot of office space in the center. But with the shared area, which is training and a lobby that can be used for multiple things, that really gives us kind of a midpoint where we can bring this building together. So I think you'll see that in a lot of the renderings mostly. But to start with the site, really want to focus on, we're a corner site, a very prominent site. We do have a large apron, obviously, coming off of the fire portion of this building. That's obviously one of the most important pieces to this whole project. It is in a DOT access right-of-way, which we are, the city is currently working with DOT right now to make sure that we can use that location. But that does bring the building quite close to LL, which also I think helps us with this corner site have a building at the corner and not have parking surrounding it on the main roads. So you will see we do have an internal road that's being designed to go around the building. That allows us also to break off fire and police separately. So police would really exit onto Grand, while fire would exit onto LL. We do have a wet retention pond in that corner as well, in that prominent corner that will remain wet year-round. We have a few other bioretention areas as well to the west that would be more planted and really wouldn't be wet most of the time. We do have a little bit of a grade change from the sidewalk on LL up to the building. So you will see there are some stairs heading up to that secondary entrance, but the main entrance really is in what I would call the back of the building, the west side, where the main amount of parking is located. That is a very prominent entrance. We do have some memorials on either side of that entrance. There's actually been some redesigns to that recently. But really flanking that main entrance into the building. And we have designed an area in the center of that with some benches, concrete benches, to provide some safety towards that main entrance. So really using some boulders and some concrete benches to make sure no one can drive into the front of this building. We do also have conduit planned for some EV charging locations on the site, along with bike racks and dumpster enclosure, some of your normal amenities really would be on that side where the hand is. All three of those items are really in that same location. We also have 3 flags planned for that main entrance, which you'll see in the rendering in a bit. As far as the building goes, we wanted to make sure we had a timeless building. So using materials that are timeless, we have brick, stone, and metal on this building. Only one color metal really, and brick and stone. The stone that we're using is very similar to St. John's Parish that you have in your community already. So we wanted to make sure that this was an iconic building. The tower is clad in that stone. The tower also will be lit at night. You can see that in this rendering. And when there is a call, it can be turned to a red or blue when emergency vehicles are leaving so that people around know what's happening. What you're seeing here in the lower right corner is really that main entrance piece that I talked about. So that lobby and main entrance moves into the training room. So that clear story really goes all the way through the building from this side to the other, west to east. You're also seeing on the top right, that would be the other side of that training room that goes all the way through. And then on the left, the fire department, you're looking at the main apparatus bay. So you're seeing the red glass overhead doors, clear story into that apparatus bay. And then that protruding 2-story building is on the bottom will have their older fire engine that can be brought out for Christmas and things like that, 4th of July. The second floor will be living quarters, and so the fire department will have very quick access to the apparatus bay. They actually have a pole in the apparatus bay that they'll come down to get into their vehicles. And then that fourth image is looking at really the police side a little bit more. So you can see we have added to that cornice, at least above the stone area, where we have signage that's facing out towards Grand. So we do plan to have some building signage facing Grand, some building signage facing LL. That will be channel lit letters, backlit. And the heavier cornice on that stone will show up in both those areas. Really is a good anchor. We have the large stone tower on the far north, and we have that larger piece on the squad garage to the south. We will have accent lighting on the building as well in several areas. We are accenting those pillars between the apparatus bay doors, where the hand is. We are also accenting some of the brick on this 2-story building towards LL. And then the stone on the far south of the building that I talked about with the heavy cornice will have lighting in that cornice that will actually light down on the stone. All of our windows are storefront, commercial storefront. They will be black. We do have, so looking at the elevations here, you can really see that two-story building, the same pitch moving towards the center training room in the middle of the building. We tried to break down the scale of the building in several ways, obviously making sure we have some banding in the brick going through the entire building, making sure, again, that the stone is bookmarking on both sides and is at all the important locations in the building. We do have some pretty deep overhangs on all of our roofing, which would be a wood look color, and that wood does go all the way through that main middle piece to the entrance at the soffits to warm it up. And then we do have some wood soffits also above the apparatus bay doors as well. The metal panel that we're using really mostly only shows up, at a higher level in the building to further break that scale down in materials. So I guess, that really kind of covers most of the design aspects. We did take a look, Bob, at that window suggestion that you had. We are going to enlarge the window at the lower floor. I don't know that we want to, because we have a ceiling in that second floor, it's really going to, it would be a window that really doesn't have daylight going through it, and we don't want to. Sure. We want to stay away from fake windows where we can. We do have daylight into the squad garage as well, which I think is really important. Any questions?
Good. Yeah. And I did have a couple of questions coming from design review. Were there anything that was suggested that increased costs?
From design review? No, nothing that they asked for really would be an increase in cost.
Would shift costs? Okay. And then is there going to be any accent lighting in the landscaping?
We do have some site bollards at the main entrance that would be lighting the landscape. And we do have a couple of bollards located at the police where that roll call area pops up into a clear story. They have a small patio outside of that, and we would have some landscape lighting there as well. But most of it is really at the building. We're trying to keep any spillage from going off-site.
And then I have a question about the EV piping. Is that going to be in the garages as well as externally?
We are not currently adding that to the garages. It doesn't fit within the budget.
Okay.
And they are still using propane for their vehicles currently. But the power requirement will be there for future.
Okay.
If that's something that they feel they need to do.
So running the internal cabling there. And Rob, I have a question for you that I can email you as well, and not to answer it tonight, but I noticed, I read an article a couple of days ago about municipalities when building and designing new buildings are putting in EV charging stations on the exterior of those municipal sites as opportunities for revenue, like putting in Tesla stations on their sites and then charging for that. Would you mind just looking into that to see if that even makes sense? That's all I had. Otherwise, for me, thank you. I've seen it a few times, so I appreciate it. Questions from commissioners? Mr. Ehrlich?
So can you explain a little bit about the tower? Is the tower actually hose drying?
Yeah, great.
It is, okay.
Great question. I've gone through this so many times, I didn't really talk about that. But yeah, that tower is actually being used to dry hoses.
Is it a mechanical unit that?
It is. Yeah,
moves
it's
up and
a
down?
lift system that would move up and down in that space.
Okay,
It ends at the most part right where the masonry ends, and then we
Yeah.
have that pop up for the lighting.
what set the height of the glass? I mean, it's very tall on, to me, it feels a little out of proportion. The glass in that tower seems like there's an awful lot there compared to the masonry. I was just curious, is there a reason that set that? Is that really just the hose rack?
Well,
that it?
yeah, I mean, most of that tower is the hose rack. The glass in that is really a polycarbonate wall, so it's translucent. You can't actually see through it. And that really, so most of that height is from the rack. We do have some area above that just for lighting changes.
Okay.
But that's really what set the height of the tower itself. And then,
Yeah.
you know, that we wanted to make sure we had enough of that polycarbonate glazing to make sure that we had a good amount of light. And I think you can probably see it a little bit better in the rendering
Yeah, yeah,
than this flat elevation.
yeah. Next question, well, I think it's a nice looking building. I really like the LL facade. I kind of feel like, and this is maybe deliberate, but I kind of feel like the Grand Avenue side it feels almost much more nondescript and almost forgotten about, which is, to me, Grand Avenue is kind of that's the entry to the city more so than LL. And I feel like that elevation, that south elevation, we could have done a little bit more. You know, you've got kind of these really nice brackets and overhang that come out over the garage door. If we could work some of that detailing out possibly, or work some of that into that south piece, that might help it a little bit. You know, you talked about the stone kind of anchoring. Looks great on that LL side, but on the south side, I don't feel like we got that anchoring. It kind of feels like that one lone piece of stone, and that's all we really have other than those two columns.
Yeah, it's, I mean, we didn't do ourselves any services by showing this rendering, I think, because it really is a lot more complex than it's showing in that rendering. It's
Yeah.
also a very dark rendering. You're not seeing a lot of what you're seeing in the other renderings, unfortunately.
Yeah.
But I mean, there really is a lot of height to that clear story that goes above the police roll call room. That's not something that you're really seeing well popping up out of that. That's going to be well lit at night. We do have a lot of windows on that facade. I mean, obviously it's an office area, so
Yeah.
there's only so much we can do.
Right.
But
I get
but I
that.
think that stone piece really is pretty massive. I mean, it's 24 feet tall, you know, at the garage, because that squad garage is rather tall.
It's hard to really get the actual scale of this thing.
Yeah, I don't think I wish I could zoom around like we've been doing with the PD and fire department and show you a little bit more how that actually looks. But with these stagnant pictures, it's a little harder to get that. I could get some new pictures out for you guys if that helps.
I get you. I agree with your point. I mean, the very cool side of the building is facing east on LL.
Yeah.
And the significant amount of traffic. And with that wondering and comment, I'm wondering if through signage and landscaping that south elevation side could be shifted around. You know, until you pointed that out, you know, we've got the really nice City of Port Washington signage on the east elevation facing out onto LL, but on the south elevation where, you know, thousands of people drive by every day, we've just got a smaller imprint there, and I think there's some, if you could find a way to do it without increasing costs,
Yeah.
that would be.
And
I'm good at spending money. I'm
No,
not good
right.
at saving it.
I think the other thing you're not seeing in that rendering very well is the wet pond.
No, don't put that in the paper.
What you're not seeing very well is that wet pond and all that landscaping. If you look at the
Yeah.
landscape plan, you can see a lot more of the trees. There is going to be a lot more life to that side, I think, than you're actually seeing in that rendering.
There's a lot of ins and outs.
Yes. Again, the pop-up wasn't showing up very good in that rendering. I think it would make sense for me to get you guys some better renderings of that corner.
I mean, I can give you a card, and if you can just send
Absolutely,
me a rendering, I'd love to
Yes.
see it. Otherwise, I think it's a beautiful building. It's got some really nice features to it, and I think this is going to be a great addition to the city. Oh, there we go. I got a rendering.
All right.
Any other questions?
Feel a lot better.
Roger?
Yeah, really not more site related. Can you tell me what's driving the size of that middle parking lot?
I mean, right now, that's about 45 spaces total. So, I mean, the training room itself would probably drive that, but, you know, anyone else coming to police or fire beyond that, I mean, there's really no other places to park because of the current location. LL and Grand have no parking anywhere near there. Really not going to be able to park on our new road because it's a 24-foot wide road. I think I mean, we're meeting the standards of parking and a little bit over, only because we have additional spaces for police and fire to park. So that's really the only public parking anywhere near here. And if you guys hold, there's going to be voting here, there's going to be, judge. You have municipal court here, and who knows what else in the future. So that's really, I think, what's driving that larger parking lot.
Yeah. I mean, because I see municipal court held here and there's no parking.
But you do have street parking around here, which you will not have here.
I guess I do see people parking on that driveway, but the other thing that is also that's maybe more a question for Joe, the apron coming out to LL. I think I scaled that at 108 feet wide. I mean, that's almost 6 or 8 lane freeway width. I see a lot of uncontrolled people, like a day like today, coming in, flipping donuts in there, doing a quick U-turn that they figure they just gotta go around because they have the opening there. If it's something that's needed for the fire department, obviously, to get in and out, back in and out, it needs to be functional over form, but I'd like to see a narrower throat there if we could get it.
If I'm doing donuts, I'm not doing it right in front of the police station.
I wouldn't be either, yeah. And there will be multiple cameras on that spot, so I would not recommend that.
Most of those people are not the brightest people.
Yeah, there is a lot of reason for that, the size of that apron. Obviously, that apron is the exact width of the bays. So most of the vehicles will go out the back and come out the front, and they're actually going to back into all of those bays. So, and they're large vehicles, obviously, that need to come fully out before they hit the sidewalk. So that's what sets the depth from the road. Fire department was actually a little worried because we're really close on the ends, getting those vehicles in there with the turning radius. So I would not change the width of that if I were anyone.
Well, I also think the two of you will have an opportunity to review that, as this is subject, the approval subject is subjected to our esteemed engineer's final work there. So I think that's good foreshadowing.
The mayor did show me a rendering of that south side, and it
Little better rendering?
looks much better.
Not
Yeah,
so
I
dark?
think the rendering here is, in the packet, is not the best.
No, it has birds in the sky, though. It looks very nice.
It really does help to have that entourage that,
Yeah.
we didn't have in that other rendering, so.
Any other questions or concerns? Otherwise, I really appreciate the diligence on the project, the collaborative work that went into designing this entire thing, the input of the police and fire department, the executive teams as well as their teams, the city staff that participated in it. It was a pretty strong group approach, which I'm very grateful for. And I never get to make any motions at council, but I'm going to make the motion to approve the staff recommendations for the building site and operational plan subject to the final review and approval of the city engineer. Is there someone willing to second that?
I would add the other motions under the recommended motion.
Oh, I'm sorry, as well as the other motion. Yes, I amend my motion to the recommended motion. I'll read it. I move to approve the subject building site and operation plan subject to the following conditions. 1, final civil approval by the city engineer. 2, city ownership of the subject site. And 3, rezoning of the subject site from B2 business to PUL, public and utility lands, and any additional conditions as determined by the commission, which there were none. Are you willing to amend your second on that?
I am, sir.
All right. Any questions or concerns on the motion? All right, seeing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, motion passes. All right, that brings us to item number 12, consideration and possible action on a public participation plan for future amendments to the City of Port Washington's comprehensive plan. The City of Port Washington is the applicant. The staff recommends approval. Mr. Harris.
All right, thank you, Mr. Mayor. So, real quick, comprehensive planning law requires that a municipality or anyone with a comprehensive plan, has a defined public participation plan when either adopting or amending a comprehensive plan. We adopted a plan in 2019 when the future land use plan was updated. But that particular plan was crafted real specifically to that amendment in and of itself. So it was very specific and had essentially steps of the planning process. That's a lot different from just doing from the what we needed as far as a public participant plan for amendments. For example, it outlined focus groups and interviews, much that we see when doing a scope for a plan. And so knowing that, for example, with the police and fire station, we could very well have a subdivision early next year by Newman. And those will require amending our land use plan. And so the state has a defined process for amending a comprehensive plan. And that's kind of outlined in my report here. So it starts with adoption via resolution by the council of a public participation plan that's attached here and what the commission is considering tonight. And then from there, there's a public hearing and a proposed amendment with a 30-day notice. There is adoption of an amended comprehensive plan or land use plan, adoption of resolution by this body, recommending that to the council, and then a adoption via ordinance by the council for an amendment to the plan. So knowing that we likely have some amendments coming to our land use plan, it would be prudent to start a plan amendment, public participation plan now and have that ready to go in the coming year and years after that. So the public participation plan as proposed is attached to your packet, and staff recommends approval, and this is a recommendation to the Common Council.
Bob, did the city attorney review this?
No, it's really following guidance from Sewer PAC.
Okay.
But
I just always get curious about why the state gets involved in local manners of planning in their statutes. So I'm just interested, like, what did some city do that sparked?
I think it goes back, in 1999, there was a statewide comprehensive planning law, which stated that when there's any rezoning or land use change, it should be based on a comprehensive plan that involved a public participation process. So it was the idea was to codify public participation in this comprehensive plan process, which then in turn informs land use and rezoning changes. And so that's where it stemmed from.
Yeah.
So
Well, usually state statutes are based upon some mistake somebody else made, so. Okay. I don't have any question. Anyone else have any other questions about this one? Is there anyone willing to make a motion so that we are in compliance with state statute?
I will make that motion.
Alderman Newmeyer, move to approve. Is there a second? Motion is seconded. Any questions or concerns? Seeing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right. Mr. Harris, I don't know how you're about to feel about my next recommendation, but we are supposed to talk about building heights next, and Mr. Ryer is not here, and we are short a commissioner, and I'm wondering if I could get permission from the commission to delay this to the month of December. So I have the opportunity to appoint another commissioner and make sure that we have Mr. Ryer here. I know this was a area that he had high interest in. So my question is to ask the Ooh, I missed my own pun. No, what was it?
He has high interest.
Oh, there you go. Well done. Solid dad joke. I missed that I said. Yeah. Wow. So my motion would be to table this until the month of December Planning Commission to give the opportunity for other commissioners to be able to participate in this conversation, as it's pretty important. So is there anyone willing to second that motion?
I'll second it.
So the motion is to table until some certain date of December. Is there then seconded? Any questions or concerns on the motion? Seeing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right. The next motion then is to adjourn. Is there anyone willing to make such a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Just a reminder that Friday night, girls varsity basketball season launches at Port High welcoming back Coach Ross. So they're trying to bust down the walls with attendance there, so we'd like to see that. And with that, all in favor of adjourning, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? This motion carries. We are adjourned. Go Pirates.